The Last Letter, English Story for Beginners. Have you ever received a letter that changed your life? Sometimes one small message can open a door to a new future. My name is Daniel. I am 25 years old. I live in a quiet town. My life is simple. I work in a small bookshop. Every morning I open the shop before sunrise. I clean the floor. I arrange the books. Then I wait for the first customer. I enjoy my work. Books have always been my good friends. They teach me many lessons. They also give me hope. I live alone in a small apartment. My parents live in another city. I visit them when I have time. My father is a retired teacher. My mother worked as a nurse for many years. They always taught me to be kind. They also taught me to speak the truth. They believe that a good heart is more valuable than great wealth. I never forgot those lessons. My days were almost the same. I woke up early. I walked to work. I helped customers find books. In the evening, I returned home. Sometimes I cooked dinner. Sometimes I read a story before sleeping. My life was peaceful, but it was also very ordinary. I never expected anything unusual to happen. One rainy afternoon, the weather changed suddenly. Dark clouds covered the sky. Heavy rain started falling. The streets became quiet. Very few people came to the shop. I stood near the window and watched the rain. It was a slow and silent day. A few minutes later, I heard the sound of the front door. An old man walked inside. His coat was wet. His hands were shaking. He carried a small brown envelope. He looked tired, but his eyes were gentle. I welcomed him with a smile. "Good afternoon," I said. He smiled softly. "Good afternoon," he replied. He looked around the shop for a moment. Then he walked toward me. "Can you help me?" he asked. "Of course," I answered. He placed the brown envelope on the counter. "I want someone to keep this letter safe," he said quietly. I looked at the envelope. It was old. The paper was slightly yellow. A name was written on the front in blue ink. The words were clear. To Daniel. I looked at the old man with surprise. "My name is Daniel," I said. He smiled again, but he did not look surprised. "I know," he replied. My heart started beating faster. "You know my name?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "I have been looking for you." I became confused. I had never seen this man before. I searched my memory, but I could not remember his face. I wondered if he knew my family. I wondered if he had visited our town many years ago. Many questions filled my mind. The old man gently pushed the envelope toward me. "This letter belongs to you," he said. "But there is one promise you must make." I looked at him with curiosity. "What promise?" I asked. He took a deep breath before answering. "You must read this letter only after I leave. Do not open it while I am here. And after you finish reading it, your life will never be the same." His words filled the room with silence. I looked at the envelope again. It felt light in my hands, but it carried a strange feeling. I did not know who had written it. I did not know why it had reached me after so many years. I only knew that the old man believed it was important. I looked up to ask another question, but before I could speak, the old man smiled kindly. "Some answers come only when the right time arrives," he said. Then he slowly turned toward the door. The rain was still falling outside. I watched him walk away until he disappeared into the gray afternoon. I stood alone behind the counter. The old envelope rested quietly in my hands. My name was written on the front. Inside, it was a message that had waited many years to find me. I had no idea who had written it. I had no idea why it had found me today. But deep inside, I felt that opening this letter would become the beginning of the greatest journey of my life. Chapter 2. The old man was gone. The rain was still falling outside. I stood behind the counter without moving. The brown envelope was still in my hands. I looked at my name again. The letters were written carefully. The handwriting looked old. I had never seen it before. I remembered the old man's words. He told me to read the letter only after he left. Now he was gone. The shop was quiet. No customers were inside. I took a deep breath. Then I slowly opened the envelope. Inside, I found one folded letter. The paper was yellow with age. The corners were soft. It looked as if someone had protected it for many years. I unfolded it with great care. At the top of the page, I saw the first line. Dear Daniel, if you are reading this letter, it means the right day has finally come. My heart beat faster. I continued reading. You do not know me well, but I have known about you since the day you were born. There is an important story that your family never told you. I have carried this letter for many years because I made a promise. Today, I am keeping that promise. I stopped reading for a moment. I looked around the shop. Everything was silent. Only the sound of the rain reached my ears. I felt many emotions at once. I felt curious. I felt surprised. I also felt a little afraid. I looked back at the letter. Before you were born, your father had a very close friend. We grew up together. We studied together. We shared many dreams. We promised to help each other through every difficult time. Life was simple, and our friendship was strong. I smiled as I imagined two young friends walking together. Then the next lines changed the feeling completely. One day, everything changed. A serious accident happened. After that day, our lives followed different paths. We slowly lost contact. Years passed, but I never forgot my promise to your father. I became even more interested. I had never heard my father speak about this friend. I wondered why he had kept the story secret. The letter continued. Your father once gave me something very precious. It was not money. It was not gold. It was his trust. He asked me to protect one secret until the right time. He believed that one day you would understand its meaning. I looked at those words again. Trust, secret, right time. Many questions filled my mind. What was the secret? Why had my father never told me? Why had this man waited so many years? Before I could continue reading, the front door of the shop opened. A customer walked inside. I quickly folded the letter and placed it back into the envelope. I smiled politely and helped the customer choose a book. But my thoughts stayed with the letter. The rest of the afternoon felt very long. I finished my work carefully. I locked the shop in the evening. Then I walked home with the envelope safely inside my bag. When I reached my apartment, I made a cup of tea. I sat near the window. The rain had finally stopped. The streets were quiet again. I placed the envelope on the table in front of me. This time, there was nobody to interrupt me. I opened the letter again. At the bottom of the page, one final sentence caught my attention. If you truly want to know who you are, you must follow the next instruction. Tomorrow morning, go to the old train station at exactly 9 o'clock. Someone will be waiting for you there. I read the sentence twice. The old train station had been closed for many years. Very few people visited that place now. I looked out of the window at the dark night. I did not know who would be waiting for me. I did not know what I would discover. But one thing was certain. Tomorrow morning, my ordinary life would take a path that I had never imagined. Chapter 3. That night, I could not sleep well. The letter stayed in my mind. I read it many times before going to bed. Every sentence made me more curious. I wanted answers. I wanted to know why my father had trusted a stranger. I wanted to know what secret had waited so many years for me. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The sky was clear. The rain had stopped. Fresh air came through my window. I got dressed quickly. I placed the letter inside my bag. I locked my apartment and started walking toward the old train station. The streets were quiet. A few shops were opening. Some people were walking to work. Everything looked normal, but inside my heart, nothing felt normal. Every step brought me closer to a mystery that I did not understand. After 30 minutes, I reached the station. The building looked old and forgotten. The paint on the walls had faded. The windows were covered with dust. The tracks were empty. No trains had stopped there for many years. A gentle wind moved through the broken fence. The place was silent. I looked at my watch. It was exactly 9 o'clock. For a few moments, I saw nobody. I wondered if I had come to the wrong place. Then, I noticed an elderly woman sitting alone on a wooden bench. She held a small blue book in her hands. She looked at me with a warm smile, as if she had been expecting me. I slowly walked toward her. "Good morning," I said politely. She smiled. "Good morning, Daniel." Hearing my name surprised me again. "You know who I am?" I asked. "Yes," she replied gently. "I have been waiting for you." She pointed to the empty space beside her. "Please sit down." I sat quietly. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. The wind moved the leaves across the ground. The old station remained peaceful. Then she looked at the brown envelope in my hand. "So," she said softly, "you received the last letter?" I nodded. "Yes," I replied. "But I still do not understand any of this." She smiled kindly. "You are not supposed to understand everything today. Some stories need time. Some truths are like the sunrise. They appear little by little." Her words were calm. They made me feel less nervous. She opened the small blue book. Inside, I saw several old photographs. The first picture showed two young men standing beside a train. They were smiling. One of them looked exactly like my father when he was young. I looked closer. "That is my father?" I said. "Yes," she answered. "And the young man beside him was my brother." I looked at the picture again. "They were best friends," she continued. "They shared many dreams. They believed they would always stay together, but life had other plans." She turned another page. This photograph showed a group of people planting small trees near a river. Everyone looked happy. "My brother and your father wanted to help others," she said. "They believe that kindness makes the world better. They spent many weekends working together. They never asked for money. They only wanted to leave something good behind." I listened carefully. The stories felt warm and honest. Then her face became serious. "One day," she said quietly, "my brother became very sick. The illness grew worse. Before he passed away, he asked your father to make one promise." I held my breath. "What promise?" I asked. She looked into my eyes. "He asked your father to continue helping people. He also asked him to protect one special dream until the right person was ready." I became silent. "The right person?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "That person is you." Her answer filled my heart with surprise. I had come to the old station looking for a simple explanation. Instead, I found a story that reached back many years. A story about friendship. A story about promises. And now, somehow, that story had become part of my own life. I looked at the old photographs once more. I felt that the next answer would change everything I believed about my family. The journey had only just begun. Chapter 4. I looked at the old woman with many questions in my mind. The photographs rested quietly on the bench between us. Every picture showed smiling faces. Every picture held a memory from many years ago. I wanted to know everything. The old woman closed the blue book gently. Then she looked at the old train tracks. "My brother's name was Michael," she said. "He and your father were like brothers. They trusted each other, they helped each other, they believed that true friendship never ends." I listened carefully. She continued speaking. "When Michael became sick, he knew he did not have much time. He was not afraid for himself. He was worried about one dream. He wanted that dream to live even after he was gone." I leaned forward. "What dream?" I asked. She smiled softly. "He wanted children to love books. He believed that books can change lives. He dreamed of opening a free library for every child in this town. A place where nobody had to pay. A place where every child could learn." I became silent. I worked in a bookshop. Books had always been part of my life. Hearing those words touched my heart. But he could not finish his dream, she continued. His illness became worse. Before he passed away, he asked your father to continue the dream when the right time came. I looked down at the letter in my hands. So that is why my father trusted him, I said quietly. Yes, she replied. Your father promised that one day the dream would continue. He kept that promise in his heart for many years. I thought about my father. He had never spoken about Michael. Maybe the memories were too painful. Maybe he wanted to protect me until I was old enough to understand. The old woman reached into her small bag. She carefully removed a tiny silver key. The key looked old. It had small marks on its surface. A blue ribbon was tied around it. She placed the key in my hand. This belonged to my brother, she said. I looked at it with surprise. What does it open? I asked. She smiled. It opens a small wooden box. Where is the box? It is inside the old library on Maple Street. I remembered that building. It had been closed for many years. The windows were covered with dust. Most people walked past it without looking inside. The old woman nodded. Your father kept the box there because he believed it would stay safe. I held the key tightly. What is inside the box? I asked. I have never opened it, she answered honestly. Only your father and my brother knew. But Michael told me one thing before he died. She paused for a moment. He said that when the right person opens the box, the dream will begin again. Those words stayed in my mind. The dream will begin again. It sounded simple. It also sounded important. The old woman stood up slowly. I am getting old, she said with a gentle smile. My part of this story is almost finished. Your part is only beginning. I stood up with her. Thank you, I said sincerely. She smiled kindly. No, Daniel. Thank you for listening. Before leaving, she looked at me one last time. Never ignore a good promise, she said. A promise made with love can live longer than the person who made it. Then she walked away slowly. I watched her until she disappeared beyond the station gate. I looked down at the silver key resting in my hand. Only yesterday, I was living an ordinary life. Now I was holding the key to a mystery that had waited for many years. Somewhere inside the old library, a small wooden box was waiting for me. And deep inside that box, I believed, was the next chapter of a story that would change my life forever.